We are now past the halfway point of this Prismatic Draft League season, and things are looking pretty good for the Halifax Masquerainmen so far, as we'll see in a moment, but it is not time to let up just yet, because there is still more work to do to clinch a playoff spot and hopefully push further to this franchise's first championship. Before anything else, let's have our weekly look at the standings, twice weekly now, I guess, which look like this after the shakeups in Week 4. The Masquerainmen currently sitting in third place. We have even leapfrogged the Foraging Furrets, who took their first loss of the season last week. I would say comfortably in a playoff spot, but these standings are still tight enough that nothing is really that comfortable. And the teams around us, the Furrets, the Farm Boys, the Porygons, the Phalanx, they're all very tough, and we're just going to have to do our best to keep level with them, pass as many of them as we can, as we head into this tight playoff race, with also other strong teams breathing down our necks, including the Drowsy Torkoals, the Liberty Garden Garchomps, whom we faced last week, and, yes, this week's opponent, the Cryptic Cryogonals, coached by Reckless Trico of the YouTube channel Reckless Trico. This set will also be covered over there. And yeah, we're going head-to-head this week, so depending on the outcome, either we can shore up our playoff position, or we will directly lose some ground to this specific opponent in the playoff chase. Here's the matchup. They have a very strong team with not a whole lot of obvious weak spots. I mean, Hisuian Arcanine, Kilowattrel, Gyarados, Crocodile, Gardevoir, even Sceptile. That's just an extremely strong, well-rounded offensive core. It is hard to find specific holes to attack there, and anything that I try to do to try to cover for a particular one of them, say with my Terra types or something, is generally likely to open up weaknesses into something else. They also have been bringing the Klefki often, and of course that's able to set screens, it's able to spam Thunder Wave, it can run some other Prankster support options if it wants. Then the Cryogonal is able to help cover certain matchups. The Magneton, I'm not sure if we've seen it so far this season, but it's potentially a matchup piece as well. They have a strong Tailwind mode with the Kilowattrel. They have even Litten could run some support options some week. But the best performer on this team, along with the Klefki and the Kilowattrel bringing their support options, the Pokemon to watch out for on this team so far has definitely been the Crocodile. It can run a choice item or something else if it wants, but it is very strong with a band or a scarf. We've seen it run some creative Terra types for offensive coverage into opposing teams, but the biggest thing is that it can just threaten a big Earthquake next to Kilowattrel, Gyarados, or Gardevoir. Any one of those is immune, so is Cryogonal. So the Earthquakes are pretty safe in a lot of positions, and the Crocodile can set up with Moxie if it wants and Snowball run away with the game. The other thing, of course, that's noteworthy about this team, it's been a little bit of a meme because their draft turned out this way mostly by coincidence, although I think by the time they picked Litten, it was intentional. But they have 5 different Pokemon that can run Intimidate. I don't think that all of them are coming to this set. Also, I think that not all of the ones that can run Intimidate will be doing that, but I still did account for the possibility of facing like 2 or 3 Intimidates in my building this week. As far as the building went for this matchup, even though it's definitely a tough team to deal with, I chose the 6 Pokemon pretty quickly, and then figuring out the specific sets took a little bit more time. As we'll see as we go through it, there's nothing too crazy this week. It's kind of falling into patterns that we've seen before this season, and actually at one point in building, very late in the process, I considered scrapping the whole team and building a different one. So hopefully I won't end up regretting that I didn't do that, but it's fairly straightforward this week. We're going to try to play to the strengths of our draft and just try to outplay this very well-balanced opponent that we're dealing with here, while covering for things like the Crocodile and the Earthquake. And actually, that's something that I wanted to talk about that I'm not sure I made clear. If I want to run like Terra Flying to get around the Earthquake, now I'm weak to Kilowattrel, very likely partner for Crocodile. If I want to run a Terra type like Grass, then I have issues with Kilowattrel again, as well as Arcanine. The Gardevoir can punch some holes in my team, especially with this dual Dragon Core, but I have to think twice about running something like a Terra Steel or Fire because the Crocodile just feasts on that. That's what I mean by it's very hard to cover for everything with this team. But hey, I've tried to do what I can to just stick to our strengths, play our game, and make it work. That said, the first Pokemon that I'm starting with in the builder this week might be a little bit surprising. It's Morgrem. basically the goal with this Morgrim set is to try to win the screens war. So we have light screen, light clay, excuse me. We do have light screen, but what I mean is we have light clay and our own screens. That'll give our team a little bit more bulk in the hope that, Pokemon like Hisuian Arcanine and Gyarados and Kilowattrel, they have a lot of coverage, but they're not necessarily the strongest hitters right off the bat. They can hit extremely hard. Something like a Rockhead Arcanine could be a lot to deal with, or like a Choice Banded Gyarados, but if they're playing a well-rounded, well-balanced game plan, then screens might give our team the little bit of survivability that they need to power through. And while the opponent also has the same option with the Klefki, this Morgrim is here hopefully to try to deny that, which is why it's running just enough speed EVs to outspeed uninvested Klefki. Klefki has the higher base speed stat, so I didn't want to get into a speed creeping war. At some point, I just lose that. So I didn't worry about the possibility of speed EVs on Klefki. If they do have that, then okay, they can get me with that. But if they have no speed EVs on Klefki, then Morgrim will be faster, and it can get off the taunt before Klefki is able to move. I also can potentially deny a Tailwind by taunting Kilowattrel. And then, yeah, it's just screens and parting shot. No attack on this Pokemon, but trying to support the attackers and the rest of the team. I leaned hard into physical bulk because a lot of the most threatening Pokemon on the other side are physical. Pokemon like, again, Crocodile, Arcanine, and what's it called? Crocodile, Arcanine, and Gyarados. And I guess the Tauros, but that hasn't been that strong so far. But yeah, just leaned hard into physical bulk, made this a bit of a specialist. That said, of course, its most exploitable weaknesses are on the special side, with Gardevoir, Magneton, and even Klefki able to threaten super effective damage into it, which is why, despite what I said about the Crocodile, I am running Terra Steel. I think I only Terrestrialize Morgrim if I just really love the positioning that it gives me, but Steel is its best Terra type to take a hit that would otherwise knock it out, targeting one of its weaknesses one time. So situationally, hopefully that's the best option available. Up next, we have a very familiar Pokemon in Kommo-o. I do swear, and if you're a future opponent watching this, I want you to keep this in mind, that I will be running a different Kommo-o set at some point. In fact, I considered multiple options for this week, just like last week, but the Clangorous Soul Throat Spray set has been very strong so far, and I think if I'm going for kind of a bulky setup game plan, that is probably the best way to go about it. Plus boosted Clanging Scales. I was going to say ++2, but that's really awkward wording. Boosted Clanging Scales hopefully can rip through the opposing team. It does, of course, not beat the Gardevoir. More on that in a little bit. And the Magneton does resist, but has to worry about an Aura Sphere. Actually, hang on. Yeah, okay, I was gonna say I'm not sure Aura Sphere is worth it this week, but I think covering for the Magneton and the Klefki is pretty reasonable, especially when I don't have an offensive Terra type. So I think we can keep the Aura Sphere. We can keep in mind that this Kommo-o loses to Gardevoir, but I have other things to try to check Gardevoir in other parts of the team. None of Kommo-o's abilities are especially strong in this matchup. There's not really any use for any one of them, most likely. Soundproof is the only one where I kind of see a case for it, because it can guard against like a metal sound Klefki if they want to do something with that, or a hyper voice Gardevoir if that shows up for some reason this week, although of course Gardevoir does not have Pixelate in a game with no Mega Evolution. Nonetheless, I saw more use in that than I did in Bulletproof or Overcoat in this matchup, so Soundproof it is. The EV spread is not as bulky as I originally had in mind, which is maybe not ideal, but 196 speed EVs outspeed Kilowattrel after which is their fastest Pokemon, after a Clangorous Soul, if they don't have something like a Choice Scarf or Tailwind up. If they have Tailwind set up, then it's a whole other speed control game. If they have a random Choice Scarf on something, there's not much I can do about that. But yeah, Kommo-o, barring any other speed control, is the fastest Pokemon on the board after a Clangorous Soul with this EV spread. And then it's just here to set up and click Clanging Scales pretty much, with Aura Sphere for a little bit of coverage. Up next, to help keep Kommo-o healthy, since it's not as bulky as I had in mind originally, we have Sinistcha. Very familiar face here. Actually, I forgot to explain the Terra Fairy on Kommo-o. Basically, it just has a lot of good neutral defensive matchups into the opposing team without overlapping weaknesses. So can't remember exactly what else I considered. I think I considered Terra Grass Grass is actually a pretty reasonable neutral Terra type into the opponent's team, given that they don't always run flying attacks on Kilowattrel, and the Arcanine is not necessarily the most threatening Pokemon in certain situations. I mean, we could threaten it with an Aura Sphere and stuff. But I didn't want Grass because that shares weaknesses with kommo-o's base typing to Ice and fighting. So there are too many Ice and flying. So there are too many situations where the weaknesses overlap. I decided Fairy was safer. Sinistcha also running the Fairy Terra for similar reasons. Obviously potentially weak to Magnezone, but I don't think that's one of the most likely Pokemon for them to bring. And Klefki, but that doesn't tend to run much offensive firepower. So I think Fairy is a pretty sound defensive Terra type into this team. So to relieve some pressure to Terrasilize Sinistcha, I have a Colbur Berry to help it take a knockoff from Crocodile one time without having to Terrasilize. Otherwise, it's mostly here to switch in. Hospitality heals kommo-o. It can click Life Dew to heal kommo-o some more. It can use Rage Powder to redirect attacks away from kommo-o. The EV spread does something specific. I was thinking about investing in Special Attack to better threaten the Gardevoir with Shadow Ball, but I ran some calcs, and if the Gardevoir has some bulk investment, there's no way to reliably one-shot it with Shadow Ball, and even if I ignore the one-shot, like even if I EV just for a chance to KO or for a KO paired with something else, the Gardevoir calcs are still just not that good. So I decided the Special Attack investment was not worth it in the end. I believe the Special Defense takes a Shadow Ball back from Gardevoir in case they run that to cover Sinistcha. So between that and the Colbur Berry, I have decent answers to a couple of the ways that they can punish Sinistcha's weaknesses, and then I just put the rest into physical defense. I think that's what I did here. And yeah, Matcha Gotcha offensively threatens Crocodile. It can get a burn on something like Gyarados. Why do I keep blanking on the name Gyarados? I don't know, but it can threaten to burn into that. And then Shadow Ball is a matchup tech here to help me cover the Gardevoir, since that's the biggest threat to kommo-o. But, of course, I also have a bigger matchup tech to cover the Gardevoir. You probably saw this coming after the Clefable last week. Tinkaton is showing up again. She is once again carrying the Shuka Berry, this time specifically to help take an attack from the Crocodile, because again, the Crocodile seems to be the Cryogonals' favorite Pokemon to attack with this season, so I did make a couple of team building choices with that one specifically in mind. Own Tempo makes Tinkaton immune to Intimidate, so far my entire team is not at all bothered by Intimidate. Special attacking kommo-o, no attacks Morgrem, special attacks on Sinistcha. The first physical attacker on the team is here, also unaffected by Intimidate. Terra Water, again, is me looking for a defensively sound Terra type that doesn't overlap with the Pokemon's already established weaknesses. So I don't want to run Terra Grass because of the fire weakness. Fairy is not really good when it's already a fairy type. Water is reasonable to take a hit from a Crocodile if the Shuka Berry is already broken. It, of course, will resist something like a Flare Blitz from Arcanine, and I just, have to try to avoid positions where the Kilowattrel is targeting this with a Thunderbolt or something like that. I mean, that's kind of just how this is going to have to be played to an extent. I did at one point think about whether I wanted to change it in case of Freeze-Dry Cryogonal, but again, I don't think they're clicking Freeze Dry into Tinkaton unless the Terra is really obvious and they already know what it is, so that's probably okay. The attack EVs, I optimized the EVs a little bit more than I did last week when I think I just went max attack. Since Tinkaton is here to hit Gardevoir with a Gigaton Hammer, I'm not really worried about the damage from that. But of course, the other reason that Tinkaton shows up on these teams is to cover for a random Terra Fairy from something on the opponent's side, which could be any one of their Pokemon. So this attack investment, I believe, guarantees a KO on max HP, no defense, Terra Fairy Tauros, which is, I think, just a reasonable benchmark into this team. Tauros is one of their relatively physically bulky offensive Pokemon, so if I get the KO into a Terra Fairy Tauros, I'm probably doing good damage into Terra Fairy anything else, and that frees some more EVs to put into bulk. Mixed, because there are defense EVs and then a Careful Nature to boost special defense. And then I didn't really feel like I needed more offense from Tinkaton except the Gigaton Hammer, so I have Fake Out, which can help kommo-o set up or get another attack off or something like that. And then I just have Helping Hand to boost kommo-o's damage and help the Clanging Scales to shred the opposing team that much more. Again, they don't shred the Gardevoir, but we have Gigaton Hammer for that. So these are the 4 Pokemon that I'm most likely bringing at least to Game 1. I think this is a coherent mode for this team right now, with Morgrem reducing damage, Sinistcha healing, and Tinkaton covering for fairies and giving Fake Out support, all in the name of getting kommo-o going and really showing what that Pokemon can do. That said, there are 2 more Pokemon, of course, that I can mix in if I want. First of those is Azumarill. This is the first Pokemon on this team that has any issue with Intimidate, but that's the reason I decided to run a Belly Drum Azumarill. I do want to try something like a Choice Band or Assault Vest Azumarill at some point, and I was thinking along those lines at first for this week, but I decided that Belly Drum is best because with just 1 turn of setup, the opponent now needs multiple Intimidates to significantly weaken the damage, right? You can overcome Intimidate just by boosting that high. As another way of dealing with that. I have gotten the HP EVs correct this week, so the Citrus Berry will activate after a Belly Drum and no other damage. I think what happened last week was at some point I went into my team and I optimized all of my Pokemon that were not immune to Sandstorm to take minimal Sand Chip, but I didn't consider other things, and that's how Azumarill ended up with an odd HP stat. But I have made sure to avoid that this week. Terra Grass, again, I think is a pretty reasonable defensive Terra type that can help it take an electric attack from something like Kilowattrel or Magneton. And then it's just a straightforward Belly Drum set. I don't even have to set up depending on the position. I might be able to just click Aqua Jet, and that strong, huge power boosted priority attack can be useful for sniping something like a Kilowattrel, a Crocodile, a Gardevoir that, or putting Hisui and Arcanine under a lot of pressure, Pokemon that are weak to it or just not that bulky. So Azumarill might be able to play something of a cleaner role if the kommo-o mode is not able to shred the opposing team all by itself. And in the final slot, like I said, I chose my 6 Pokemon pretty straight. Well, I'll talk about alternatives later, but let's just get into what the last Pokemon is. It's Salamence once again. I was thinking about bringing a physical set with Clear Amulet, but when I started to think about what the attacks would be, I mean, I don't know. I could lock into Outrage, but that's kind of risky into the Gardevoir, Klefki, Magneton team. I didn't really love it, and I decided that a special Salamence would have better coverage here. Plus, that also frees me up to run Life Orb. And so none of my team has any problem with Intimidate except Azumarill. And again, we try to overcome that, maybe depending on the position, by just boosting through it with Belly Drum. So overall, Special Salamence means I have a whole team of Pokemon that are not terribly bothered by Intimidate spam if they do end up bringing that. More importantly, Salamence gives us our own Intimidate, so that can help to keep the Crocodile in check, as well as Pokemon like Gyarados and Arcanine. I do have to watch out for the Kilowattrel because that will... Well, that gets competitive as an ability, and I think there's a good chance they'll be running it. So I probably want to be very careful with the Salamence if I see Kilowattrel in this matchup, which I think it's likely that I will. Which is all the more reason that Salamence probably doesn't come to Game 1. But it is a mix-up that I can bring in later games to get more damage from a source other than kommo-o. The Terra type of Fire is here to change up its type matchups, cover weaknesses, and also boost the damage on Heat Wave, which I think, one, is valuable coverage into the Fairy and Steel types on the opposing team, given that Draco Meteor is the go-to attack here, and two, it's just more accurate than Hurricane, so, you know, Terra Fire Heat Wave might be more reliable than Hurricane into Gardevoir in some positions. That said, I do think the Flying Stab is useful here, so I will take my chances with Hurricane if I think the position justifies it. Otherwise, this Pokemon sets Tailwind and throws off a big Draco Meteor. And the other, that is, Tailwind is the other thing Salamence brings to this matchup. Having my own Tailwind means that, you know, I have a number of Pokemon with speed benchmarks that ignore the possibility of opposing speed control, like the kommo-o being faster than anything after a Clangorous Soul, unless they have Tailwind or Scarf. But if I get my own Tailwind up, then I can mitigate their Tailwind. I can make kommo-o the fastest Pokemon again. Pretty straightforward, you get the idea. Finally, the EVs. This Salamence is guaranteed faster than Crocodile, barring a Choice Scarf or Tailwind only on the opponent's side. And then the rest is just poured into special offense with everything left over being for bulk. So in a neutral speed control situation, Salamence can land a Draco Meteor into Crocodile before Crocodile can get going with Earthquakes and knockoffs. So that's the team. There were a couple of other Pokemon that I thought about, but I really didn't see a great case for them. I thought that Passimian might be interesting because it can run Defiant into possible Intimidate spam, but I just didn't see the rest of the vision with that Pokemon. It's slow for this matchup, so I thought maybe a Choice Scarf set or maybe Trick Room stuff with Sinistcha. But yeah, I just didn't see that vision all the way through. Passimian, I think, has a lot of trouble into Pokemon like Kilowattrel, Gyarados, and Gardevoir. And so while Defiant Boost could be cool, I didn't feel like it was doing very much with them. And then, of course, Magmortar is always an option for the Follow Me, but it's weak to Crocodile, it's weak to Gyarados, and I just don't see a ton that it brings to the table in this matchup other than the Follow Me. So I think it needs a little bit more than that. We'll rely on Sinistcha for redirection. Game 1 game plan, depending on what I see at preview, is probably something like Morgrem, kommo-o, Sinistcha, Tinkaton, but I have a couple strong Pokemon I can mix in. I think they're the best Pokemon for this matchup, although some other sets were definitely under consideration at different times. And with all that said, there's nothing left to do but cut to the battle and see how it all played out. All right, here we go. Battling Reckless Trico once again. An opponent we know well since Season 2, although I wasn't uploading at that point. Hopefully playing this one as straightforwardly as I have won't, at least in the builder, won't bite me here, but we'll find out. Good luck, have fun to Reckless Trico. I do see the Klefki, so I might want to think about leading Morgrem. Leading that into Kilowattrel is also kind of nice with the priority taunt. No Gyarados, which is interesting. I feel like that Pokemon influenced my prep in a few subtle ways. But we do see the Crocodile, Kilowattrel, and Gardevoir. That's all expected. The Cryogonal is a nice touch. I did kind of think that might come. And even so, I didn't prep super hard for it. And of course, the Arcanine is here. Alright. Yeah, I think it is just the original game plan for Game 1. Lead kommo-o Morgrem with Tinkaton and Sinistcha in the back and see how that goes. I don't know who this is who just joined the lobby. Probably someone from the PDL, right? But I don't recognize the name. So somebody's alt here, maybe. Yeah, and okay, this is why I have Terra Fairy kommo-o. It's probably relatively safe to set up into these two. And I think I'll just go for a Reflect with Morgrem. I mean, these are both threatening damage, and they're threatening different kinds, but yeah, the Crocodile is kind of scary, so I'll Reflect here. Just Terra Fairy immediately. Terra Ghost on the Crocodile, okay. Ooh. Yeah, that Dazzling Gleam still does a lot of damage, and it knocks out... Uh-oh. No, this has not started well for me. Oh, it's Mirror Herb Crocodile? No way! Okay, this... Yeah, might need a different plan after this first game, huh? Okay, let's think. What is there to think about? Sinistcha, Rage Powder. How much? Wait, how much did the Dazzling... Yeah, we'll survive the Dazzling Gleam. If there is any pulling this back, I think it starts with this. I go for Earthquake. Not taking the Rage Powder bait, so we're going to lose kommo-o here, and that's game. Probably game. Actually, the Gardevoir might be choiced. It's probably not threatening much damage into Tinkaton. We can take an Earthquake with the Shuka Berry. So, I mean, I'll play this out, but yeah, it's obviously not looking good. I guess I'll just Life Dew. We know that the Crocodile isn't choiced because we saw the Mirror Herb and also it switched moves. Maybe I needed a more active turn with the Sinistcha there. It's going to drop pretty soon anyway. Yeah, another Dazzling Gleam will probably KO. So either Tinkaton just solos this, which does not exactly look likely right now, or yeah, I can't even protect Sinistcha because I don't have it. So maybe they'll let me protect and heal here. That's the only out, I think. But of course, like I said, Sinistcha just drops to another Dazzling Gleam. And we'll drop to Flare Blitz and then not get off a Gigaton Hammer. Okay, game 1 went pretty badly. What can I do about this in game 2? The problem is that Gardevoir is just so good at chipping down my team. right? Like, kommo-o setting up the Clangorous Soul was really not very safe in that first game. Going for a belly drum with a Azumarill is not going to be any safer. Kind of do wish I had the choice band, as it turns out here. I can lead Salamence. That is an option. It's going to take a lot from the Dazzling Gleam unless I Terra Fire, in which case it takes a lot from the Earthquake, so I don't love it. I could just lead Tinkaton and try to force out the Gardevoir. While I could lead Tinkaton Salamence, actually. I think I can lead Tinkaton Salamence. I think I'm just going to have to try that. And then I don't really trust the kommo-o here, so I'll try Azumarill stuff. But yeah, they might have just out-prepped me hard. It's Arcanine Gardevoir lead this time. We land the Intimidate, showing that we have it. So if we get to game 3, then the Kilowattrel might be an issue. I can Terra Water Tinkaton. I don't love using my Terra immediately here, but the option exists. Unfortunately, I don't have a Hydro Pump or something on Salamence to threaten the Arcanine. I'm just going to go for the Terra Water. Gigaton Hammer into something and try to set Tailwind. I'm just under so much pressure from the get-go every game. I knew the Gardevoir was going to be in it. Wow, okay. And it's faster, so I guess it's Choice Scarfed. I knew the Gardevoir was going to be an issue, but it's been even harder to deal with than I realized. That's something to consider if we meet again in playoffs or something. You get the Tailwind. I think I have to try to make plays with the Azumarill here. They can't Terra Arcanine, so that's something. Do I Belly Drum or do I just Aqua Jet? I feel like they're just gonna go for damage to deny the Belly Drum, right? Helping Hand Aqua Jet is an option. Okay. Dream Speed doesn't do too much from the Intimidated Arcanine, but Aqua Jet misses the KO into Gardevoir. We'll activate the Citrus Berry here without getting a Belly Drum. I'll go Sinistcha. I might actually be able to Belly Drum. No, I don't trust it. Okay. Aqua Jet the Arcanine slot. Knocks it out. Gardevoir is still racking up damage. It probably was more important to finish off the Gardevoir there, actually, but oh well. There's Kilowattrel. I, of course, don't have the Terra available now, so try to remove Gardevoir and just go for Rage Powder. Unfortunately, I had a free Life Dew there, but I didn't take it. There's the Crocodile. I mean, I do have some pressure into the Crocodile, at least. Yeah, I think if we salvage this, it starts with... I'm going to try to get a Life Dew to cover for that Protect and get a Azumarill a bit healthier. Don't get the Life Dew. I do get Fake Out this turn. If I want into, let's say, Kilowattrel. Try to land this Play Rough. Would have been better to Fake Out the Crocodile, it turns out. Yeah, I just completely got this set. That is good prep by Reckless Trico. Also missed the Play Rough, but it doesn't matter at this point because we're never beating Kilowattrel. Alright. Yeah, I'll have to go back to the drawing board for future matchups. I definitely did get too predictable here. But, that's how it goes sometimes. GG's, Reckless Trico. Masquerainmen now drop to 3-2 on the season, and we're heading into a bit of a tough stretch in our schedule, so gonna have to keep pushing for those wins over the remaining 3 weeks. Even the playoffs are definitely not a sure thing yet, but I'll get back in the lab, and Spooky might play 1 or 2 more, we'll see. And I definitely think there's more to show in terms of what this team can do, but full credit to the opponent for some excellent prep on this one, and solid play throughout. Anyway, that's it for this week, until the recap of the other sets.